Hi. So today we will be discussing the subject of neurodivergence and specifically autism. So I would like to give a little description of neurodiversity, nothing too complicated. So basically neurodiversity is the way you're wired is just not typical from what it is like for normal people. And under that label, kind of, I guess, not exactly an official label, there's a bunch of things like there's autism, Asperger's, which is basically, as you guys know, as the watchers, the people that are watching know, Asperger's is technically taken out of the DSM and is just considered part of the spectrum. ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, which is like just a learning disability that affects written expression and can have difficulty spelling, poor handwriting. What else? Hyperlexia, that's just an advanced reading level. We got dyspraxia, which is like movement and coordination issues. Dyscalculia, don't know how to pronounce that, is a difficulty in individual being having difficulty with arithmetic, math, multiplication, division, subtraction. OCD is under that as well. Tourette's. Then we have epilepsy as well. And I found when I was doing a little research before doing this roundtable, I found that some are saying that interestingly enough, that gender identity disorder, homosexuality, bisexuality, asexuality is a neurodivergence, while they're trying to, I feel like they're trying to say like it's an abnormal thing. I do 100% see it's something that I've actually realized, I guess fairly recently, but I'm not sure how long, really how far it goes. I do notice that people that are in the spectrum tend to kind of have both genders in balanced well, so it could get kind of confusing. So I definitely don't think it's an issue or a disorder or a problem whatsoever. It's just there's something definitely when it comes to neurodivergence and like for example, when I was in my early 20s, I felt like a boy. I mean, I no longer feel that way, but I definitely do not completely identify, like I'm definitely very much both in a weird way. And I guess I'd like to ask you guys to introduce yourselves, starting with you, Bobby. What you do, or your experience, your knowledge when it comes to the subject of autism and neurodivergence, I guess, if you want.
Sure. Hi, my name's Bobby. I am 39 years old and I got a diagnosis of autism, I think 3 years ago now. It's interesting because I'm a speech language pathologist and I have specialized in autism specifically. And because of the research and what I had been shown, like I believed autism to fit into this very stereotypical mold that the research gives us. So even I was brainwashed, I feel like, by the medical model. But then I went into this, I was going for my PhD and I was into this fellowship program for leadership and education for neurodevelopmental disabilities, I believe is what it stood for. But I met a ton of other autistic people and then many that were women. And I'm like, wait a minute, if they're autistic, then I'm definitely autistic too. And so like, I went to the psych and got my diagnosis, and it all kind of, is interesting to look back on now because my mother didn't speak until she was like in fourth grade. And I've got like three autistic uncles that are her brothers. And so it's now I look at it and I'm like, well, duh. Um, I have my oldest child has ADHD. My middle kiddo presents very much like me. So he's got a borderline ADHD diagnosis right now, but I'm pretty sure he's just autistic and they don't know that presentation of it. But yeah, that's my experience. It's kind of all over the board.
Oh, so beautiful. Christina, how about yourself?
So I do not have a formal diagnosis, although I did go years ago. Funny that you mentioned having a PhD, Bobby. So when I was in grad school and struggling a little with the structure of it, I went to see if I had like ADHD. I don't know. I was just like, I'm not dealing well in this environment. Because I really get, I've had a very flexible work environment for many, many years that I've kind of fallen into that I can make work for me. So I went to go get diagnosed and I was sitting in the psychologist therapist's office and he's just asking questions. And there was this moment where I was just like, even if he says you are this or you are that, I'm not going to do anything different. Like I'm not a big believer in allopathic medicine. I'm a wellness coach. So I'm like, I'm not going to force myself, I guess, into a box. So I was like, thanks, I appreciate your time, and got up and walked out. So so that was that. And then last year, so I didn't really think about it. For me, it's just about working my life around what works for me, I guess, if that makes sense. And then last year, like a year and a half ago, I kind of thought the guy I was dating was autistic. So I started like diving more into it. And as I'm studying and reading and watching, and I'm like, wow, this is like totally me. And so, I mean, I don't know, I've never gotten diagnosed, but I have a passion for working with autistic children, like in my wellness practice, and just supporting myself and what for me to live my best life, whatever that means for whatever label somebody would put on me. So
Beautiful. How about yourself, Jen?
Hey, so I'm Jen, and I have a previous background working with children who presented autism-like behaviors. So I did play-based development, and then I became a program manager in that field. So I would end up supporting the kiddos and families through an autism diagnosis at 3 or right before their 3rd birthday. So I went to a lot of presentations. I was brainwashed as well, like you were saying, Bobby, where we would say things like, there's no cure for autism. There's only 2 things we know about autism. There's no cure, and we don't know what causes it, but also it wasn't vaccines. Like they would add the vaccine thing in, and it was like, well, what does that have anything? Okay, whatever. Where I went to one presentation where she had 2 PhDs and bragged about that for a while, which is great, like good for her. She was really cool, but she just bashed Jenny McCarthy for like the first 10 minutes. And I'm like, well, can you maybe get into some interesting stuff that you've probably studied? That would be way cooler. So there was a lot of just negativity towards alternatives, I guess, when it came to autism, like the holistic or any homeopathic healing, like you're saying, Christina. Like where I worked, they weren't mean. Everyone I worked with was very kind, but they would just say like, oh no, this kiddo like definitely just has autism. It's going to be really sad for their family. They're going to be devastated. And they would set the families up that way, like, well, it's okay, but you know, your kiddo might never talk to you. And these parents are devastated and sad, but instead of helping, I guess, I feel like we should have been more helping them understand, like, it's okay if they don't, you know, they're going to communicate in their own way. So you have to change instead of trying to change this kiddo, which is what we were kind of doing. It was to help the families and just teach them communication skills and things like that. But one thing that I saw that was really interesting is that when I would go into an autism evaluation, you know, there's no, I'm sure you guys all know this, but there's no blood test that you can take to determine if you're, you know, have autism. It's not like that. So it's just based on observation. And in many times it's an opinion. And that just kind of freaked me out a little bit because I do know a couple people with autism that I relate to. And like you said, Christina, I've thought about going in and maybe seeing, you know, just I just relate so well. And I've done so much research on it. I'm like, oh, this is so me. I've taken every online test and I almost always come out with a diagnosis, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go and it just doesn't matter. I'm not going to do anything differently. I'm just going to still live my best life. So, but anyway, these doctors would say, what do you think to me, about this child that I've been working with for a year? And I'm like, it shouldn't matter. But I mean, I would help them the best I could, but I don't have a PhD. So I just felt like they shouldn't have been relying so much on the opinion of someone when they're determining the course of this child's life potentially, but still fun. And then the whole company basically went out of business when COVID hit. So I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, for myself, I also offer services to families with autistic children as a bridge between the two, because usually, the parents don't understand their kids. So basically, I'm able to, I'm sure you guys as well, I'm able to like read and understand what's actually going on. It's kind of for neurodivergence or autistics or whatever, it's easy to pick up on. It's kind of like extra sensing. So same thing with myself when it comes to animals. I could, for the most part, read what's going on. So, I'll feel out, I'll understand what the kid needs and what the parents need to do. So basically kind of, because they're suffering, the children are suffering, and somebody needs to step up and kind of like, it's okay, guys. This is not the end of the world. There's nothing wrong with this child. They're just different. And they're here kind of to teach you how to love. And they need your love. And yeah, it's technically a growth opportunity. And so when it comes to the nervous system, how do you guys feel about, do you find that you need extra like comforts? Because like for me, there's like, I'm just so uncomfortable in this world, just like everything just overstimulating, like I'll need to like do something, something extra. I'm constantly looking for ways to be comfortable. How about you guys? Right? It's rough. Yeah, so okay, let me see. So yeah, I just want the world to kind of try to understand again, once again, that there's nothing wrong with the autistic individual. Is just a variation in functioning rather than a mental disorder to be cured. There's just a neurological wiring, plus an extra added variation of the possibility that the soul is not of this planet, not of this solar system, this dimension, and of this particular way of being. Like we're, as far as regular people go, these souls have been here for, generation after generation after generation, or lifetime after lifetime after lifetime or so. And, they kind of, they're plugged in and they know how to be human, So like, what if your soul is from a different solar system? I don't know how you guys feel about this, but like, and how the listeners, the viewers would feel about hearing such a, I guess, I don't know how new this concept is, but my understanding is just that we're not of this realm. We're here to raise the vibes. We're here to bust the system. The system is not working. It's not working for anybody, but those that are neurotypicals, they're able to adjust because lifetime after lifetime, it's been the same thing over and over and over again. Like go to school that looks like prison. Like that's normal. So yeah, all the nonsense, just the school system, just all the nonsense. We're coming in, and we're just like, we literally can't function in that. And they're trying to drug the children, which is fucking insane. Sorry for the cursing for those that might be offended. It's insane. How do you drug children? That's just my opinion. I know this may not come off correct to a lot of people, but that is definitely something to consider. There's nothing wrong with autistic child. They're just different. If you look at for example, you know how some autistic children, maybe even into adulthood, they'll walk on, on their, what is it called?
Like tippy toes?
Yeah, but like, the ball part or
Balls.
whatever.
Balls.
Yeah. But it's like, and Jen, I feel like I talked about this on your podcast, correct? I'm not sure.
I
Right?
think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all right. Go on.
So like it's like, why do you like, where are you from that this is part of your wiring, so like just little things like that. It's just like, you're not from here. Or for example, not being verbal. Maybe they're just not used to being verbal wherever they come from. So all these little different things, the way this spectrum is all over the place, is because like these individuals are coming from all these different solar systems, these different ways of being. So therefore they are presenting in this world so very different. But usually the commonalities are, extra sensitive, specific gifts and everything. What else did I want to? Yeah. So let me see. Relationship between the diagnoses and how they relate to one another. It just, yeah, different expressions. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about was being connected to the spiritual world, to the divine, and kind of a feeling of one foot in both worlds. I feel like you guys might be able to relate to that. I know you, Bobby, kind of go into meditation and you actually do experience some amazing, wonderful things. Would love to hear your experience.
Sure. I'll do my best. It's really difficult to put into words. So I kind of go into this, like, it's just a deep meditation. I mean, I'm not like in a trance, or I don't like leave my body or anything like that people describe. But I start, okay, so when people talk about light languages and they do all the stuff with their hands and they sing and all that stuff, imagine that, but on the inside of my body. It's like, so whatever is going on when these people are using their hands and they're singing and they're feeling this like emotion while they're doing it, that's happening to me on the inside while I'm seeing like geometry in real time. So like in my third eye, I can see like, is the plural of Taurus, Tauri? I see like that, the thing that goes in on itself and comes back out, and I can see like today it was octagons and like all like the honeycomb that goes over the earth, like, you know what I mean? So like I can see those things, and simultaneously while I am seeing them, I'm feeling experiences like earthly sort of experiences. So like right now it seems like it's all like there's so much information coming in, but it's like it's all related to emotional experiences and how there all of these different frequencies, like color frequencies and emotional frequencies and musical and perception frequencies, they all come together to make this to make our reality. And yeah, it's just emotionally I'm experiencing it while seeing it, and it's like all happening very, very quickly. It's very difficult to put into words, but like if that could be a light language, I think that's what it is. It's like telepathy, but it's not with other people. It's like with the consciousness. Like I feel like it's ancient. Like it goes way back to like the very beginnings. It's weird because I don't know how to share it with people. Like, you know, like people want to share their gifts, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain this, guys. I wish you could plug me in to your brain and I would share it with you, but
Wow.
yeah.
It's just a gift meant for you.
Yeah.
I guess, yep.
Yeah. It feels like you're just tapping into the field, into the Akashic or quantum field, whatever word we want to throw on that. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I can't wait to witness what will come of that. I'm sure eventually it'll click into place. Or not. Maybe it'll be just for you.
Well, I like over the year, it's definitely like shaped itself into something newer and different. Like when I started, I couldn't even remember the stuff after it happened. And so I started keeping a notebook, and now I keep a notebook. And I think now that I've kept a notebook, it's easier for me to hold on to it while I'm writing. So it's getting a little easier to like hone in on like the ideas that are coming through. So yeah, like right now I feel like the idea that's coming in has something big related to emotions and like each chakra. But that's all I can say about it with actual words right now.
Yeah. And you also have like this connection and understanding and perception of the different dimensions as well, my understanding.
Yeah, so it wasn't though until I watched oh no, I'm not gonna remember his name.
Matteo Di Stefano.
Yes, him. So it was funny because I did a meditation, and then afterwards I turned on Gaia because I was in bed already, and I'm like, I'll just watch TV for a little bit before I go to bed. And what he was explaining in like one of his first videos or a couple episodes was like the origins of the universe, and he talks about how it splits and there's the masculine and feminine, and then he goes on and talks about it. And while he was describing it, he was putting actual words to what I had just experienced in my meditation. It was just like whoa, like mind blowing. And it's funny because he made this hand movement that I had literally drawn on my notebook, the same movement, because I knew it was like important, but I like couldn't put words on it. So I just drew a picture of it. And then he did the exact same thing. And I was like, well, this is too much. But like, he's clearly experienced what I've experienced, but he understands what it means. And I'm not yet there. Like, I'm just like, I can see it and I can feel it, but I don't know how to put it in language. And he has that. So I just kind of let him do it. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Right. Beautiful. Christina, how about yourself?
Oh, sorry, what was the original question?
Let me see. Oh,
Or how did you phrase it?
let me
Bobby
see.
was talking and like my head was going like 1,000 miles a minute on like related things.
La 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 la. Yeah, so being connected to the spiritual world, the divine.
Oh yeah.
Feeling of both worlds.
Yeah. So it was interesting because I kind of feel a lot like you, Bobby. Like there's just so much. I struggled with this when I did the podcast with you earlier, Natasha, because I feel like there's so much I've experienced and I would love to share, but I don't know how to articulate it very well or how to help. Like a lot of people will be like, how can I tap into what you tapped into? And I'm like, do your work. That's what I always say, but I don't really know. I mean, and on our thing, we talked about spiritual rabbit holes. So I was just kind of like, follow these things, these deep dives and go there. But interesting that you mentioned the geometry, Bobby, and like the light codes. Like, so I started dreaming in, I guess I would say dreaming in maybe geometrical light codes, right? Like they get the downloads that way, but like I don't sing. And so that's been kind of a newer thing. And then of course, you know me, I'm always like this week, I just channeled all kinds of animals that show up with a perfect message. Like, you know, just laying in bed and a llama pops in my llama face pops up. I'm like, what's a llama mean? And it's like the perfect message. Or like, what was it this week? A squirrel, a badger, and a llama. And I'm like, which makes no sense. I'm like, let me just go look it up and see what that's all about. Right. And then with sense and music too. But yeah, I think like when you were talking earlier, I kind of feel like I'm wondering if like the message I kind of got is have maybe those of us that would maybe be not or would be neurodivergent, like have we spent many more lifetimes than other people or more recently than other people elsewhere? Do you know what I mean? Like not just like our most recent experience isn't being on Earth. I mean, although I know I've spent many lifetimes on Earth, but maybe that wasn't my most recent one, although I am a very old soul. So I've been all over the place. But anyway, what was the other thing I was thinking of? Oh, I guess the big thing for me too is I don't know if any of you guys are into human design, is as I've kind of dove into it and I've gotten really fascinated in the 1949 channel and what that means for the coming years and how that kind of shows up in everybody that I've met that's maybe ADHD or autistic. And like I definitely get like one of my roles is seeing and breaking down all the systems in finding new ways. And like, so that's something that I see us moving towards. And I love how you put it, Bobby, like those are like ideas that are formulating, but I don't really know how to articulate them yet. And like things are starting to show up for that for me to do the work in that area. So what that means exactly, not really sure yet, but that's going to impact like education and healthcare and even just parenting. Like I had an interesting conversation the other day with somebody, and I mean, going to your drug conversation, I get like parents do the best they can do, and they work within whatever realm they can work in. But like a lot of it is just because like their perception is that it's too much, or the child is so much for them to handle without really realizing like we don't need to control another person, which is also a hard idea when there's a parent-child relationship. Anyway, I just like kind of all these ideas and seeing how like the workforce will be changing too. You know, I'm in academia, and so as I've seen my students change over the years, and what needs employers will need to meet the new realm, I guess, of autistic workforce is really fascinating for me too. Like, how do we engage and be truly inclusive? I actually have a paper I'm working now where I don't think we're really defining inclusivity a lot by the neurodivergent workforce as well, which I think is really needed. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, kind of all kinds of thoughts. I don't know if I really answered your question. But.
It's perfect. It's perfect. How about you, Jen?
So as far as how, I mean, autism and spirituality, I think it's funny because they call kids with autism self-involved. They're so involved. They're so involved with themselves. It's so, like almost like they're selfish, but they're never mean unless someone does something which like is for everyone across the board. If someone does something they don't like, you know, then they react appropriately, in my opinion. But I think as far as being spiritual, you have to be selfish, but in a good way. So it sounds weird to say, but you have to be innerly selfish. You have to love yourself so much, first and foremost, like putting on the mask before you put one on your kid, you know, like if in a plane or whatever, if there's an oxygen thing. So, but I think you should be loving yourself. And I think we're all part of the same thing. I had a really weird meditation recently. I just started meditating right before I went on your show, Natasha. And it was this weird quantum thing because you were like, tell me your ascension story. And I was like, okay. And I did not have one. So I just did a meditation, and not for that purpose. I just did one because I was like feeling crappy anyway. And I'm like, I'll just do this meditation that this lady had told me to do like almost a year prior. And it was a self-love meditation. And it wasn't that amazing. I mean, I did cry. It was powerful, but I didn't see anything cool. I didn't see any amazing geometric shapes or anything cool. I just loved myself, and I saw myself from a baby to now over the years, and just hugged myself and loved myself and was there. So I did that, came out of it, and then immediately was doing these weird hand motions and had these weird like thoughts that I just were like downloaded into my head. It was so strange. I was like, oh my gosh, we're all part of the same thing. I knew that when I went like this, it was like powerful. Like I could feel, I know I sound like a crazy person right now, but I could feel this like tingling just by going like this. And it felt like God in a way, which I was not even looking for at all. I was not religious. So I was like not even thinking about God when I was doing that meditation. I was just trying to make myself better. And I just knew God's real. He's there. It's not, and it's not the Bible God. It's something totally different, but we're all part of that thing. We're all together, this other big thing. There's so much more going on, and I couldn't explain it to anybody at all. I tried, but then, so like you were saying, like both Bobby and Christina, when you want to share it with someone, you just can't. You can tell them your story, but it would be like telling someone what it was like to give birth to your baby, and like it's going to be totally different for them. You can't share. You can share it, and like there'll be some similarities, but you can't. It's not going to be the same experience, just no matter what. So just they have to find their own path. And as you get better at it and learn more, like I'm kind of where you are, Bobby. Like I can't explain anything. Like I couldn't tell someone how to do this. I was just like, go try a self-love meditation. Maybe that will work for you. I don't know. But I think everyone has their own path. They're just going to have to find it on their own, give helpful suggestions and things that you maybe did, but those things might not work for other people. But there is definitely something that we're a part of that's way bigger, and it might look like geometric shapes or colors or light, frequencies to someone else who's maybe higher up. I don't see that stuff yet. I'm not quite there. But there's something bigger around us that we're not meant to see. We're meant to have this human experience and stumble through it or, fly through it like a breeze, whatever. But we're meant to have this for a reason. I think it's because this big giant thing we're a part of wants us to. And then when we return back, it grows as well. That's what I think with the spiritual world.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Hey, can I add something?
Yeah.
That Jen just triggered for me is, so I think you made a really, really, really good point that maybe we should talk a little bit more about, which is this kind of idea of selfishness and selflessness. Because one of the things that I've been saying is that as we're moving forward, and hopefully if people have picked up on the opportunity of the last 2 years, which was to go in, do your work, and really become very in tune with the body and with your source, really in tune with your own inner source. And I have found a couple of times when I've said this to people is when I say this, they're interpreting what I'm saying as for them to become selfish. And I find it interesting. To me, it's just more reflection of where they're at, because I didn't say that at all. But anyway, it's like tune into source and become aware of who you are and be in integrity with who you are. So I think one of the advantages that I'm potentially seeing, I mean, I don't necessarily know if we've tapped into it, but is that with autistic kids, like that they'll be able to tap into their inner knowing with some tools and work and stuff, and be really grounded in source. And so it might appear to other people that they're being selfish, but in reality, if we can support the work, what they're really doing is maintaining their lane, which I always tell people, and in so doing can actually become selfless, because then you can actually give back and hold a lot more neutral space for people. But I think this is like probably way ahead of the time kind of idea where people like can't really grasp how that will work. But I see this is kind of what I've been seeing where we're going, is that people in doing their work will appear, so to your point, putting their mask on first will appear selfish, right? Which is funny, I use that analogy with all my clients all the time. Put your mask on first before you save others, right? And then, but in so doing, once we've like become really true and integrity and in tune with our own source, then we can actually give and help others from a stronger, better, more grounded place. And so I guess I'm just really seeing that as where we're headed. I mean, as a collective, but I also see that one advantage maybe of, I mean, I think generally they would say autistic kids, adults can tend to be detached emotionally, is what people claim. I actually think we're more sensitive. And so that there's, anyway, so hopefully that makes sense what I said, that there's this opportunity that we can like really tune in, but then use our more sensitivity in a better, more collective, productive way. Is I guess what I keep seeing where we're going.
Being detached and numb, just that subject. It's, in my opinion, is because we are so sensitive that some of us actually, it's I guess a way to deal. Like, for example, when it comes to myself, I'm so sensitive that eventually I depersonalized. I became numb. I became detached. I mean, yeah, I mean, it just, like things get so extreme at some point that you kind of have to go that route, to really manage.
Have you ever noticed, is dissociative identity more common for like?
you know what? It does make sense to me.
Yeah, it would.
And I was thinking about it literally a couple hours ago. Dissociative identity disorder, aka back in the day was known as multiple personality disorder. How it's interesting because I'm all about integration, all about integration. The reason I thought about it was because earlier on I was in a podcast, we were talking about integration, and I was thinking about specifically DID, that the reason that integration works is because integration is so extremely powerful that first of all, it works for everybody across the board. But the reason that's what helps the person with DID have all their different personalities or splinters or whatever word you want to label or put on that, that this works so well is because that is the number one thing. We are here to integrate all of our traumas, all of our issues. So just like kind of makes sense. And yeah, I do feel like when it comes to multiple personality or DID, I feel like that is definitely a very possible thing that it's a spectrum, neurodivergence thing, maybe, perhaps autism thing. Because again, they're so sensitive, so extremely sensitive. That was my version, was just one version of handling it, and that's having depersonalization is the proper name for it. Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to like I said, you know, they're like, oh, you know, they don't have empathy, they're numb, they're detached. It's just ways to deal. And even till this day, even though now I feel I'm able to detach just to kind of manage, you know, and then process it later, kind of like put a pin in it, you know. And when it comes to being self-involved, I actually I do agree that that's like a space holder gift kind of thing. My other theory was that imagine somebody's having a really hard time, you know, like they're just having such a hard time with their environment. It's just like an example that I use is like, imagine somebody's poisoned and you're like, well, why are you so like not social? And it's just like, well, I don't feel well. Like what, like for example, if you have the flu, is another example. Like when people like go to the party and just like, I don't feel well. What do you want from me? So also when it comes to and just going backwards, when it comes to spirituality or that connection to the divine. So I was having another conversation with another woman on the spectrum, and we were talking about, and I'm not sure, I think all of you ladies might have seen that video, I'm not sure, where we talked about that, like, let's say in a tribe, there would be an autistic individual, or you know, that neurodivergent individual, and they would take that like child, and they would have him train with the shaman, because like, you know, these individuals, their connection to divine is so strong, like, you know. So it's interesting to me that they gather people that are in a spectrum, the very sensitive ones, the ones that because we're so sensitive, a lot of us, you know, we get picked on, and you know, and we end up in families that are just not that are kind of really toxic. So we end up, long story short, developing all these other extra things on top of our already extremely different way of being, our extreme sensitivity. We end up developing other actual disorders where, you know, it's a coping mechanism. It could be bipolar or personality disorders, and really the list goes on. Schizophrenia, well, that's a whole other thing. I feel like there's a extreme fear and imbalance with that, but that's a whole different story. But so yeah, they take these individuals, and you know, like, again, we're so sensitive, we end up developing all these things, and instead of like, hey man, we see you, we want to give you the proper care where we're like really like take care of you, take care of your needs, your emotional needs, like just like you're safe, you're loved, you know, the stuff that all of us need deep down inside, that's like really technically number one, to be understood and taken care of and loved. So they take these individuals and they're like, and you know, and they're like, you know, you're a menace, let's lock you away into a mental hospital, you know, let's drug you up. And it's just like, we're taking all these technically shamans of the world and locking them up. How crazy is that? How do you guys feel about that? Any opinions?
Think of power and control, right? I mean, when you're talking, that's what I'm feeling, right? So it's easy to, for 80% of the people world to like put the 20% that are different in a box or away, or drug them to quiet, right? Because that's just, I don't know, that was
Easy.
Yeah, I mean, the initial thought that came to mind, but I think that's, I think again, that's part of that, the breaking down of the system that will be happening over time, right?
Absolutely.
So people can step into their individual uniqueness and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
But I mean, as a collective society, we don't really like people that are out of group. So in group versus out group, right? We don't really like out group. So
yeah, as humans, right? Absolutely. Bobby?
It's so weird that you brought this up, because literally this morning I was reading, I do tarot, and I was reading Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees of Wisdom. I've read it before, but I was just rereading. I just started it again. And I literally in the beginning, and it's talking about the Magician card, which is number one in the journey, you know, and the magician, she likened it in history to the people who, like the word inspiration is from the root word spirit, and it literally meant like breathing in the holy breath, which is like giving you like a spark, like, you know, a passion for something. But these people who were born with this extra energy, this extra breath, they could liken them to mentally ill, because these people had this energy and they did not know what to do with it. And so in these cultures that you're describing, these shamanic cultures, they would take these kids and help them direct that energy. So in the magician card, you actually see him holding his staff up to God to get the breath of God, but then he has his fingers pointed to the earth because he knows how to use it. And so she was talking about that today, like using that extra energy that other people can't access, because they can't access the breath of, you know, spirit. But so teaching them how to do that, but to still be a service to humanity by keeping your hand on the ground and learning how to channel that energy for the greater good. So it's just really interesting that you brought that up, because I read it today.
My God. So it's interesting. Literally, the next thing I have up to discuss is the need for grounding, which I'll circle back around. So, oh my God, that's why I was like, wow. How about you, Jen?
So what was the question? So are you talking about how people handle people with autism, or just differences?
So basically the connection to shamanism, to spirit, to the divine. What do you think about it?
I mean, I can see where those cultures, that the powers that be are trying so hard to destroy, you know, become fewer and fewer. We don't really think about that stuff. We don't have shamans in our society. I mean, at least we don't in America. I'm not saying we don't anywhere, but it's not mainstream, something that people talk about. We talk about powerful people who, you know, go to school for this many years and then become politicians and president, whatever, CEOs. Those are the powerful people now. And it's like the farthest you could possibly be from being a shaman. So I think that there is some sort of, I don't know if it's darkness or what, but is trying to kind of take that away, because being spiritual, being going back to God or whatever the connection is the way that we can get power. And I think every single person can do it, but we are so distracted in our, day-to-day tasks and living our lives. Like we have to go to the grocery store, we have to make dinner, we have to get the car washed, all of these things that really don't matter. Our main focus is, rather than focusing on the powers that are all around us that we could tap into. So yeah, the cultures that had shamans, they could recognize that because they were super in tune with the earth and spirituality, and they knew exactly what to do. So they could see a child like that and say, oh, yep, this is the one. And they just knew it. And to us, we're like, how did they know? But they were so in tune with things that are taken away from us in our daily life. So I just think that, yeah, that's 100%. I wish we could do that now. I think we should have more shamans in the world.
It's heading that way. It's how it's gonna actually come about. Who knows? Maybe it'll be like stuff like this. I don't know, over Zoom, or I don't know. We'll see how it develops. But definitely there's stuff like when people do what is it called? Plant medicine. I
Like
mean,
ayahuasca? Is that what you're thinking?
yeah, or just like any kind of medicine, really. I mean, they even have like cacao ceremony, so it doesn't have to be go on the far end. Which, by the way, something that I realized, I had new information come in and realized the other day, that when it comes to plant medicine, when you're in a certain like, it's a good way to kind of, I guess, help a person to awaken to the reality, and to quote unquote meet God, but also when you're already on that path, that it's not exactly a good idea to do it anymore, because you're already there. So like,
I think you and I talked about this on my thing, right? Because I'm a big believer, like, in actually not. So to your point, Jen, like, we all have access to this, right, in ourselves. But like, I find like a lot of people right now, and a lot, I'll say a lot, in this spiritual community are using plant medicine, but they're relying on it. And I'm like, no, you don't need to use it. You can move beyond that. You have everything within you to access without that. That's just another what's the damn it? What's
handicap is good.
Yeah, handicap that you're to try and get there without getting there on your own.
Yeah, handicap. No,
No, I'm thinking like, what's that thing you walk on? You and I are
yeah.
both like, what is that?
We can't get away.
Somebody help us. What is that thing? A crane? A crane?
Similar to a crane.
A crutch.
Crutch. That's the word.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So yeah, basically that if you're already awakened, your DNA is technically already doing like accelerating. So like, to add anything extra, you're kind of burning yourself out. So anybody that's already in a place where they feel like they're kind of like awakened, and there's acceleration going on within, to like not go down that route. And also, if you do go down that route, make sure you do find somebody that is really, really good at what they do, because you definitely need protection. Yeah, you have to have somebody that holds space the right way. Perhaps surround yourself with, let's say, violet light, to kind of make sure you're protected from any other influences, because there could be good spirits and there could be bad spirits. Yeah, just saying. There's definitely not a place to talk about it. I don't know why I got into this subject. It's a little going down a totally different rabbit hole. So okay, when it comes to
So I'm like, it's our group. Try to stay focused. Just try to stay focused.
Focus. Okay. So yeah, so I wanted to mention grounding. So, oh my God. So everyone should definitely ground themselves daily, on the earth, and in the body, first of all, and then into the earth. And the way to do that is, well, first of all, when it comes to grounding yourself into the body, kind of bring your attention, and that's what they call, I guess, meditation. Find yourself in a quiet space and kind of feel yourself in your body. But something else that is very important is to ground yourself onto the earth. And that way, that you could do either through putting your bare feet on the ground, whether it's just sitting on the ground and putting your bare feet, or taking a walk if you're able to, with your bare feet on the ground, preferably on soil, grass. And so there's this movie called, I believe it's the grounding movie, which I'll put in the show notes for anybody that wants to take a look. And it gives you the signs of it, how the knowledge came about, and the benefits, and how most diseases actually have to do with your lack of being grounded to the earth. And if you really think about it, decades ago, when they invented the shoes that we wear now that have the rubber, and we're no longer connecting to the earth, no longer just basically you have to, I'm not going to be able to do justice to describe the process, but basically not being able to be grounded to the earth causes inflammation in your body, and inflammation causes disease and so many other things that are discomfort / cause, you know, all kinds of issues. And as a matter of fact, they do mention autism in the movie, how they're trying something, and I don't remember what they're doing exactly or what their plans are, but they're trying grounding in the classrooms, and they're finding better results where the child is able to focus more, and it makes complete sense to me. Just it just rings so true. So when it comes to you, Bobby, when you mentioned the magician, I never thought about this and this. Oh my God, I have such goosebumps right now that you're in touch with the divine and well grounded to the earth. You need both, because then if you're just out here, you're not grounded, you're not really making sense to the physical world. When you're grounded, you're also realistic, and this is just the way definitely. So yeah, everybody should definitely ground every day, but especially neurodivergent autistics. And it should be done, especially for neurodivergent autistics, should be done every day. It should be done every day for everybody, but especially if you're on the spectrum or just wired differently, you need to do it to help your system be healthy, and to be able to manage and have less anxiety. So if you have anxiety, which technically chances are, if you're neurodivergent, technically you're so sensitive, you usually have anxiety. That's just usually the way it works. And
I don't know, we didn't really talk about it. Is one of your goals to give strategies, I guess? Because the other thing, I mean, is I was thinking when you were talking about that, is just finding what works for you for calming your nervous system. I mean, through a couple of our conversations so far today, you know, whether that is grounding, whether that's quiet time, whether that's textures and that are more appealing, because I know I'm a little texture sensitive, sound, like quiet or quiet time, which is a really big one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anything that brings you comfort, 100%. And yeah, grounding is, like, I feel like at the very top of the list. And then
breath work.
Breath work, absolutely, yes. And then also when it comes to diet, there's certain things that neurodivergence can definitely benefit. Like, for example, being so sensitive, we can't have all the processed food, like the regular diet that's normal. We just can't eat like that. Fruits, vegetables, herbs, nuts, seeds, especially the superfoods, is what we 100% need. Everybody needs it, but like our sensitivity, just like we even more so. Otherwise, we're out there, because again, we're just not balanced, not grounded, and stuff like also like it's just so much stuff that's unhealthy. But yeah, when it comes to diet, things like, for example, what is it called? Cilantro helps to clear out what is it called? Mercury out of the system. So that's, heavy metals, for example, mercury and lead, as a matter of fact. Just a bunch of food that can help a person thrive instead of just survive. So yeah, that's definitely something that I help introduce to people that have individuals that are on spectrum in their family. Yeah, because we all deserve to feel good. So yeah, when it comes to poisons or the things that we ingest, whether it's food or our water or the air that we breathe, just things aren't as pure as they used to be. And I feel like, and I'm usually, when it comes to certain things that it just feels so right for me, that when it comes to autism, specifically autism, really, I feel like unless I feel like a lot of the time, because we're so sensitive, there's going to be issues, not just the way we relate to the world, but there'll be sometimes issues where we can't interact with the world. Just like our body is not, again, depending on the individual, how deep they are, or how I don't want to use the word disabled, but I'm going to use it anyway. I guess how disabled you are. And the reason I'm allowing myself to use this word is because when you're poisoned, when you're not allowed to, because of all the poisons that surround us, when you're not allowed to develop properly, and instead of having health enter your system, you're having poisons into your system because you're so sensitive, you end up having all these things, and that make you a certain way. And really, what it has to do with, we need to clear the poisons out of the system and stop putting poisons into our systems, watching what we eat, making sure it's organic. And again, like the cilantro to help remove lead and mercury, and then parsley removes couple other metals. For some reason I'm blanking on it right now. Couple of other things I forget, but basically there's foods out there that help clear things out, help, I guess, get it out of the body, and all you have to do is watch how you eat. When it comes to having sugars, I feel like we on the spectrum, or autistic children desire sugar, and I feel like there's definitely a healthier alternative than giving candy, for example, because they technically, because of their wiring, they need the sugar for their nervous system, for their brain, because of how they're wired. So an alternative to that is fruit. So like stuff like that, just understanding what to put into the body. How about you guys? What do you think? Any opinions on?
I love what you said about food, because when you said, well, when you use the word disability, it's funny because I don't think even after working in the field for 2.5 years, I didn't see autism as a disability. It was just people who think differently. But with all of the garbage foods and fluoride in our water and
Yep.
crap everywhere, it could present as a disability because of all of that. So
Yeah.
it could disable someone who is more sensitive, making them appear to be disabled when in fact they just think differently. But all of these other things that maybe neurotypical people can handle, it affects them not at all. So they're fine. But someone who's neurodivergent, it would just affect them to the point where it would look like they have a disability because of that. The food is literally disabling them.
Right. Absolutely. And one more thing on this same subject, that and then when you're not being, I guess, disabled through all the poisons, if let's say your parents just made sure everything's clean, you're just eccentric at this point. So like on one end you're eccentric, and the other end, if you've been poisoned, you're quote unquote having issues. I just don't like that word, so I'm not going to use it anymore. I'm done. How about you, Bobby? What do you think?
I don't know really what we're talking about anymore, but I guess I'll add this, is that I don't really see disability as a bad thing. I'm also a disability advocate. So the word disability shouldn't put anybody off, or like you shouldn't be stopped from using it, because what it really means is that you are disabled by society or by the medical system or whatever. So you being disabled is like, it's happening to you. It's not who you are. So,
Yes.
so there's nothing like inherently bad about it for the person experiencing it. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? So yeah, it's more of like societal disability. Like in our country, having like nearsightedness is not a disability because almost everybody can't see, and so almost everybody wears contacts, has LASIK, has glasses. But if you live in a third world country and you can't, if I take my glasses off, I can't drive, I can barely walk through a doorway without hitting my shoulder. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so disability is really based on the society that you're living in. So like I said, eyeglasses here, not a big deal, not a disability, but the same exact thing depending on where you live and who you're socialized by and who cares for you in specific ways, then you can be disabled by it. So the word disabled shouldn't, like, you don't have to eliminate from your vocabulary. We actually really advocate for it. So like you can say, yeah, I'm disabled because you guys are assholes and you won't build me a ramp or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're
I feel
disabling me, not the other way around.
I feel you. I feel you. Absolutely. Yeah. So the question was, how do you feel about I'm going to call it an opinion, that the problem is that our world is poisonous.
I don't know. I think I'm in the camp of like, yeah, I would rather it be all healthy and perfect, but it's not a reality right now. So I think if you focus on it too much and you make it too big of a deal, it will become a bigger deal.
Right.
I've got very picky children. And any parent will tell you that you just want to get your child fed, you know, so like I understand that people are the product of their environment and what they're capable of in time and space. And so I think I give a lot of grace for it. Yes, I would like it to be perfect, but it's not possible. And so I don't spend too much of my energy on it. Like I know that most people on earth are trying to do their best, and that includes the people bringing us our food, you know. So yes, these corporations have done terrible things and they're working terribly, but the people who are doing the day-to-day stuff for us, I think they have good intentions for the most part. So
Yeah.
I try to focus more on that and try to eat fruit and vegetables and get them in my children as often as I can. But when I can't, you know, whatever, I'm not gonna build a crusade for it.
Absolutely. I hear you. How about you, Christina? What do you think about the poisons in our food and how they are the problem when it comes to creating certain kind of disabilities, I guess?
Well, I definitely think I think more of toxin overload, right?
Yeah.
So more of just like how full is your cup with toxins. So some people can process well, some people can't process much. And it's not even, it's food, it's environment, it's everything. It's like I mean, we have to think of stress even like inner stress, home stress. You know, are we exercising? There's a lot of components to that picture, but I think there's a lot within our control to manage what really are symptoms a lot of times. And that's on a continuum with much worse to much better. And so, you know, as we show up, you know, like I shared my story. I was really sick for years. I got really sick from mold and some other Lyme and some other things. And so for sure, all of my behavior, other symptoms were worse because I was at max toxin overload. And then, of course, as I cleared those things out through various ways and things, you know, though that all went away and was able to be more highly functioning. So we're on a continuum or continuous spectrum of functioning ability. So where people are at is generally more a function too of, I guess, how toxic they are. So, you know, it's up to like some people don't want to do the work to remove the level of toxins from everything in their life. And that's a choice. So maybe they'll be less functional, you know, and that's fine. I think we meet people where they're at. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for myself, the weirdly enough milk affects me in that way, where my system gets overloaded and kind of like contracts and almost kind of not exactly shuts down, but in a way, so I could still get through my day. It's just I go inward, and it's really kind of hard to interact and relate to the world, and just in such a kind of weird neurological or neurologically sensitive spot. So I can imagine that I'm not the only one when having this this response to milk products. It's really weird, but yeah, I'm wondering if other people on the spectrum, or just the neurodivergence in general, if they have these issues as well when it comes to milk in particular. But so that's where perhaps my theory of poison came from, like how you'll retract, and whether so yeah, it's interesting, the stuff that we ingest, how it's either damages or whatever it does. I'm not sure exactly what it what the situation is, but it takes over a month for me. Like, it could be the smallest, teeniest amount of milk. It takes over about a month for me to start to function again, weirdly enough. So it's like really really scary, really uncomfortable.
I'm curious what Jen's experience was when you were working at the place you worked at, like if they encouraged families and parents to make lifestyle changes for kids.
So no, because we were what we were doing was going in and doing whatever the family did. We were following their daily routine. So we weren't ever suggesting stuff like that. It was more like we would show them different ways that they could communicate with their kiddos through play and through finding motivators for the children. And we would bring in a bag of toys, but we would ultimately end up using whatever they had around the house. And if the family had like no toys, because some of them, just didn't have the money for it, or it just wasn't a priority in their home or whatever, we would use like pots and pans and like spoons and whatever, and just find ways to make things fun, or sing songs. One girl, I just literally did the whole session for 2 hours by singing nursery rhymes to her and songs for 2 hours in front of her whole family. Super fun. But we would do things like that. Like, we would never say, you should try this or try that. But ironically, a lot of the families, as soon as they started researching autism and things like that, there's so much out there that they would make those changes on their own. Like, I can't even tell you how many families had, talked about either not vaccinating their kids because they were just reading different things, or saying things like, I'm going to do all organic, or they already were all organic with the kiddo. I'm not saying that's right or wrong or good or bad. I have no idea. But there were a ton of families that did that research on their own and saw things like that and made those changes. And we would just support whatever they did. So, yeah, we just weren't really, we were taught to definitely stay out of any opinion on anything.
Mm-hmm.
So. And at the time, I was like super pro-vaccine. So I'm like not now at all. But people would say, like, I'm not going to vaccinate my child. And I would just think like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, I can't believe you're doing that. I was so brainwashed. But now, obviously, I wish I didn't do that to my kids. But I don't know.
Yeah. So what do you guys
I wish
think
we took a more holistic approach. I guess that's,
yeah.
I mean, and maybe that's true with anything, but we have all these silos, right? Like, I totally understand like where a kid would come in, like they're just looking for more, like, how do we get them to speak better or play better? But I wish we were more holistic, and like, and that's just all of our systems, the medical system, the social system, care system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, just
what do you guys think about neuroplasticity when it comes to neurodivergence? I feel like neurodivergent individuals have more neuroplasticity. I feel like that's something that I've noticed. So we are able to kind of rewire ourselves if we take the conscious approach to doing so. Do you guys have any kind of, just something that I've noticed? Do you guys have any kind of thought about this? No.
That's interesting. So one of the patterns that we would look for with kids when we were doing sessions or even doing an evaluation. I guess we do an initial and like a end of program evaluation, and we would look at their adaptability. And we were told that kids with autism were not adaptable at all. You know, they were very rigid with their play and with the way they think and do things. That's just kind of part of the training. But that wasn't what we saw. They were super adaptable. Like, we were witnessing them completely make these changes, whether it was, you know, and learning speech or learning sign language or learning to play in different ways. They would learn and grow very well. So I don't know. I think they're much more adaptable than we are taught as a society, I guess.
Yeah. What I've noticed in myself, I'm definitely like throughout the years, I've like the improvements that I've been able to make in my life is due to the neuroplasticity. And when it comes to the rigidness, you know, it's technically, it's in a way, it's both. While there's the possibility of neuroplasticity, there's also, you know, I need the comfort of, you know, doing this, you know, specific routines and all that stuff. So like both technically, but yeah, still definitely I feel like a lot of neuroplasticity. And so then also I feel like this is not a very common topic, but and I, to be honest, couldn't find much on it, but I wanted to bring it up on this roundtable anyway, because I've heard a discussion about this topic, and I could not find anything. Maybe you guys have heard something about it. So what I'm talking about is the theory that neurodivergents have an increased DMT production in their system. Have you guys heard about this at all?
Mm-mm. No, but it's interesting,
isn't it? I feel like, oh wait, Christina, I feel like I've spoke to you about this before. Maybe
I think we probably just chatted about it.
Yes.
It's actually really weird that you say that, because I was listening to something this morning about DMT, and I've never really listened to anything on it before, so it's just interesting you bring it up. But
yeah, synchronicity. Yeah, it feels to me like most of my life there's definitely an aspect of just natural trippiness. Like obviously not a full-on trip, nowhere near. And I just want to also bring up the fact that everything in existence has DMT in it. So like grass has DMT in it, your dog has DMT, just everything has DMT already. But I feel like there's just like an extra added production of DMT. Like the closest thing that I found, which is I guess not close, but there being research done that there is a dysfunction in the pineal gland, and you know, it's not that it's a dysfunction, it's just, you know, functioning differently. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring that up. I feel like that was like an interesting piece of info to, I guess, even to ponder possibly. So now I would like to ask you guys if there's anything that you feel like you would like to talk about, mention, discuss, any topics, anything.
I feel like we got into a ton of really cool stuff, honestly. There's so much. Yeah, I don't have anything to add for sure, but I love that you brought it to, from, you know, just autism in general to spirituality to meditation and grounding. I think that's all really important, and it's not pushed in that community, at least not where I worked. They don't talk about holistic healing or meditation or, you know, any sort of self-care at all. It's more just, how can we help these people adapt and be normal in today's society, because they love today's society. It's super normal, but I mean, it's different. You can also step out of that and say, well, let's meet them where they're at and see what's going on in their world. Maybe that's a better place than what we have going on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question. Maybe this is a good, like, how we can spell. What would you guys have wanted for support growing up? And I guess I think both Bobby and Jen said your parents. Like, where do you find your kids need for support? I guess what can people do better would be my question.
What do you think, Bobby?
So I have taught graduate level SLPs in school, particularly in autistic and neurodivergent communication. And the first exercise I do with them is we talk about neurotypical spectrum disorder. So I flip the tables on them and we pathologize the symptoms of neurotypical people, and I show them how simple it is, like how easy it is to say, oh, they make eye contact so intensely that it makes you uncomfortable. Like that's a symptom of neurotypical spectrum disorder. And so we go along all these things and talk about how easy it is to pathologize it, and then it gives them a frame of reference moving forward in the rest of our lectures, for looking at what, like, perhaps what a SLP like objective might be for their autistic student, and go, okay, but why did we create that goal? Like the stereotypical one that is thankfully going away but is still present sometimes is the eye contact. Like the child will maintain eye contact for 4 seconds during what, just something gross. But now my students are being trained from the get-go to look at it and go, okay, is that necessary? Like, why do we need eye contact? Is that a neurotypical sort of goal? And is it really relevant? And it's like, honestly, no. Eye contact makes the neurotypical person feel better, not the neurodivergent person. And so if we're really trying to elevate their level of communication and advocate for them and to self-advocate, then we need to be teaching them, the people around them, to stop putting these expectations on them that only serve the people who are truly in power. So for me, that's what I do with my students, is I start from the very beginning and just change the way they look at it. And so I think it serves the bigger purpose there, when we teach it at that level. So they're scrutinizing their own work.
How about you, Jen?
That's the coolest lesson. That is like the coolest thing I've ever heard, Bobby. I love
I
that.
didn't make it up. I did.
I love it.
take credit for it, but I do it, but I don't take credit for it.
Still, just the fact that you do it is awesome. I mean, yeah, just meeting our kids where they're at is super important no matter what. Every kid's different. My daughter's 16, so we argue a lot. She's a teenager. And I do go back and forth between being like this harpy, awful mom, or, I'm like, you're grounded or whatever. But recently I found that I have to just accept that she's a person and she's going to do her own things and be herself, and I can't really control it. So, so recently, I'll just give an example of a story. So my husband and I were going on a trip. We never go anywhere. And we were going on this trip the next day. And I cleaned my daughter's, I was like doing her, the sheets in all of the whole house. I was like cleaning everyone's sheets for them. So I pick up her pillow and there's a weed vape pen under it. And I was like, she's like a straight A student. She's in all honors, advanced placement classes. She's doing so well. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I was very upset. So, so I told her about it. I brought her home after I picked her up from school, and I was like, hey, so I found this in your room and I don't have time to ground you. You're going to your friend's house for 7 effing days because I'm going on a trip tomorrow. So there's nothing I can do. So there's no punishment. There's no taking anything away at this point. I'm going to be gone. I could either do delayed punishment or, try to send her to her grandparents' house, which she would have hated more than me letting her go to her friends. But instead I said, hey, what is this? And she said, oh my gosh, that's not even mine, of course. It's my friend's. I was just holding it for her because she gets
Under my pillow.
Cool. So I said, that's effing stupid. So I said, okay, that's dumb, but here's the deal. Here's what I'm going to do. I don't have time to ground you and I'm livid right now, but I'm going to tell you 2 things. And one is a scenario in which I believe you, and one is a scenario in which I don't. So I was like, I believe you. That's stupid. Why would you hide a weed pen for your friend? That means you had it on yourself at school. You could have gotten searched and then you would have gotten taken away by police, and who knows what they would have done. I would have been called. you would be in huge trouble. You might be expelled. You definitely would be suspended from school. People would look at you differently. And she said, but it was my friends. She would have just told them that it was hers. And I said, no, she wouldn't have. Definitely not. But that's another life lesson that you're going to have to learn on your own. Do you think she would scream from the crowds and run through everybody and just tell the police officer to take her instead while you're getting in trouble? No, she would be scared to death. She would not do that. She would definitely wuss out and she would stay where she was and you'd get in trouble for it. So do you see why that's a terrible choice? And she said, oh yeah, but she still thinks her friend would have stood up for her. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll let you handle that. And then the next scenario, I just said, okay, well, I don't believe you that it's your friends, it's yours. And this, I'd rather have you at some point in life, if you have to choose some sort of coping mechanism that's a drug, I'd rather have you smoking weed than drinking or doing, meth or something. Like, weed's not this horrible bad thing. And we live in California where it's legal, but we don't have like weed in our house or anything. So we don't judge either. I don't care if someone wants to smoke weed. I think it's definitely healthier than any other street drug out there and healthier than pharmaceuticals as well. But she's 16. So I was like, this is bad for you. And it's a vape. Vapes are deregulated by the FDA until 2022 or 2023. They can literally put anything they want in it. So you shouldn't be putting that in your body. It makes me sad and I'm worried about you. And then I was like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm going to Denver now. See ya. I have to go. But just having a rational conversation with your kids and explaining things instead of letting it build up inside you and then lashing out at them, which I've definitely done like a lot. So I'm not, this perfect mom. I think we all have that happen and then have to figure things out. But being able to calm down, have a conversation with your kids, no matter what they're doing, no matter how they're behaving, whether it's something you can't understand or what, we need to do a little bit more work sometimes. Well, I think everyone does, but where, like you were talking earlier, Natasha, about drugging kids, I think that's just like a lazy thing that people do, and it's okay. I understand the need for it, so I'm not saying lazy, maybe that's not the right word, but it would be a lot easier to give your child a drug and calm them down because it's easier for the parent rather than take like hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and not get that instant gratification that you would eventually get if you did the work all the time with your kids or with people in general. I think it's easier to just give a drug, and it's not really lazy. It's just, it solves the problem. No one wants to feel that anxiety. No one wants to feel that heightened emotion. So they think, if I give this drug, they calm down, I'm better, they're better, we're all better.
Plus, it's considered to be a normal thing to do. So I get it. It's and apologies if I'm coming off as being judgmental. I'm just trying to look for to communicate another option or something to consider, like a point to consider that it's not healthy, and there's alternative ways. And while it's considered normal, maybe again consider other options.
But I think a lot of parents have considered other options. Like, as a parent of a child who is drugged, it's for, like, what led to it was him having a mental psychotic breakdown, and he was 5. To have a 5-year-old come to you and tell you that he's hearing voices in his head and they're telling him to hurt animals, like, as a parent, I did a lot of stuff to help him, and I tried a lot of things, and I am very well trained professionally, and being neurodivergent myself, like, I understood the fear he was going through. So, like, medication isn't always bad, and I think that parents know best. So I do kind of hate this conversation because my kids.
There's a key word you said though. You tried other things first.
Right, but I think to think that a lot of these families aren't trying other things, that's what's happening right now. Is you guys are making these assumptions about these families that they're not trying other things, and they are under the scope of what they know best.
Well, this is more so directed towards those that A, are not trying other things, and B, are not experiencing the severity that you are, because I 100% agree with your choice, because when it's a severity to that level, absolutely, it's not black or white in any way. It's just more so like because again, it's such a wide scope of like somebody just, you know, moves around a lot, let's drug them. Is that really the option? That they're not hurting anybody, they're just moving around a lot. You know what I'm
That's what
saying?
I was saying too, Natasha.
Yeah.
The kids that have like high energy, not something where it's, you know, having a breakdown like that at 5 years old.
Right.
It's more the high energy, and instead of maybe helping them get that energy out, it's like a drug option. That's what I'm
Right.
gonna get.
I'll
Yeah.
give an example too. I mean, again, this is like there's such a like spectrum and continuum of where this is. I had an old coworker who's had twin girls, and they were both diagnosed at a really young age with being on the spectrum. I mean, this was a long time ago, and I had made the comment about like, oh, that's, you know, great, awesome, cool. What are you doing? Are you helping them to support them through their diet? And he said, no, that's too much work for my wife and I. So I think that's where all of us have been like talking about, is like that, when that's the response, not to not use drugs or anything, but it's like, it's that parent. Like he was taking his girls for like ice cream, and he had a babysitter, and they fed them all kind of crap food. And then he would complain about their behavior. And it's like, well, but what about trying some you know, diet modifications? And his first response is, that's too much work for us. So, I mean, yeah, and that's a choice too, and that's totally fine. And then, yeah, everybody has like whatever, again, I think like we were talking about, like whatever their realm of whatever they can work in is, you know, and whatever they want to do. But I think like it would be awesome to be able to see people willing to try different things and see how to support, I mean, in a more natural way first, but there's all kinds of options available. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And really we're all just we're all just trying to do our best. You know, sometimes
Exactly.
we don't have the time to, you know, I get it. But shouldn't we also talk about these things to, you know, to have some kind of seed to consider to, you know, over time maybe blossom into your own way of doing things, instead of kind of just like not talking about it at all. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I also wanted to bring up eye contact, you guys, and I'm glad, Bobby, that you brought it up, because I was thinking whether to mention it or not. So you know, this is just my theory. So I feel like when it comes to eye contact, like in my own sphere of existence, my own experience with it. So I feel like there's a couple of things. One is depending on the energy of the other person, because being so sensitive, I feel like you can pick up on certain things that are maybe uncomfortable to a person. So therefore you don't want to make eye contact. Because if you notice, sometimes a person like an autistic person can make eye contact with somebody, let's say that somebody that's really really on their level, communicating with them. So they'll be able to look up and like, you know, communicate depending on where they're at, how deep they're in their own world. And then the other thing is depending on how the individual feels. I feel like again, if you are like, for example, when I have dairy, I can't really like, I don't want to make eye contact. Like I can't, I don't know, there's like too much, there's something it's too hard. It's too much of a connection. I don't know what words to put to it. So yeah, that's, I guess, something, again, I just wanted to bring to the forefront when it comes to eye contact, the why of it. Do you guys have any kind of opinion whatsoever about eye contact and the reasons to why an individual may or may not be able to do eye contact? I don't really expect you guys, you know, to have any answers, but I wanted to bring it up.
So we just talk about it as like what you just said, energy, the energy is too intense. So in the way that I work with it, from language and speech perspective, communication with my students and with myself, I find that most of the reasons why eye contact isn't being made is just like you said, it's an intense energy. And if you expect me to process language, whether it be my expressive language or to be able to process what you're saying in my receptive language, I'm not going to. Like, it's, if I'm making eye contact with you, I'm being polite, but I'm probably not processing what you're saying. And if I'm trying to explain something that is really complex for whatever reason, I'm gonna not only need notes, but I'm gonna need to not look at you, because if I look at you, it's going to take away those resources to help regulate my body. And so I'm not able to process anymore. So it's like I have to give my resources either to my brain to process language, or to the other side of my brain to process my sensory overload. So I can't have both at the same time. So yeah, like in my SLP sessions, I absolutely would never ask for eye contact. We talk about autistic communication and how that necessarily doesn't look like eye contact. But if we're not going to look at the person, we can do other things to show them we're listening, and like move our bodies, say, yes, I'm listening, like raise your hand, all kinds of things that we can do. So I teach them autistic communication in a neurotypical world. But yeah, with eye contact, that's exactly how I see it. Is it's just such a sensory overload that, yeah, you're not able to process the language, whether it's going in or going out or coming in.
Absolutely. How about you, Christina? What do you feel? Any opinion?
I would just, nothing to add on to what Bobby said. I mean, I think it's, as I'm like looking off, I find for me emotionally, like if I'm just doing something factual, but I guess I was thinking of what her comment is about where your brain is spending time. So like if it's more emotional, I find it harder than if it's just like straight up facts or something.
Yeah. How about you, John?
Which I've never really thought about before, but I have to kind of ponder on that one a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I love talking about this stuff. This is just kind of little seeds to think about. How about you, Jen? What do you think about eye contact?
I am not a huge fan, but I don't think it's necessary, like Bobby said. I just don't think so. I mean, if I'm listening, I've had so many people tell me, like, are you listening? And I'm over there talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally listening. I'm sorry. Or I didn't get a job once because I basically didn't, it was a panel that I had to like interview in front of, and I didn't really look at them the whole time. And I went and was telling something about a previous job experience, whatever, interview questions. And I realized partway through that I was like looking up in the corner of the room, but I was telling a really good story. Like they just saw that and it was like, nope, like we do not want to hire you. They didn't say that, but and maybe there were other reasons, but I realized like, oh, this is an issue. I'm looking at the corner of this window and like talking to this panel of professionals in front of me. So I just think that it's just not important though. It really doesn't matter. I mean, if you don't need to make eye contact. I'm not even looking, like when I'm looking and even talking, I'm looking at like other stuff, like in your little cubes. Like I don't usually look at people's eyes anyways when I talk. I think it's weird too. I think it's just very strange. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, why do we need to be so personal? Why do we need to look into each other's souls?
Because we thought that we're not paying attention unless we are. I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's definitely like a thing that's just odd.
But it's an American thing though too. It's not in all cultures. Not like in some cultures, like looking at someone is rude. And so yeah, it's really just an American thing. Or I mean, and maybe in other cultures, but
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So I notice I'll have issues looking at somebody in the eye when they did something. For example, they lied to me, or they kind of like did something to kind of like, like I can't look at them. Again, it's definitely an energy thing. And also, if I don't really know somebody, like if I don't know that they're safe, I don't want to like for example, going on a date with somebody, the whole sitting, in front of each other. I'm always like, let's sit next to each other. It's to me, it's too much. Like I can't concentrate. It's like too much of it's like a panic thing. Like it's just like, why do we need to do this? So
that's kind of funny. I sit next side by side. I like that better than face to face too. I never really thought
yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah. So another thing that just popped into my head just a couple of minutes ago is telepathy. I feel like there is more depending on the individual 100%, but I feel like there's more of a telepathy um, developed, or just I guess natural to neurodivergent individuals. What do you guys think about that, if anything?
I wouldn't call myself telepathic, but my mom and I don't know if it's so much on her end, but for me, I recognize it. Like when we talk, she often doesn't complete sentences. Like she does, I don't know. She just thinks I know and I can, but apparently I do, because she will say something so vague, like so vague. And then I'll go, oh yeah. And I'll give this very, very specific response to what it is that she's talking about. And then she'll be like, yeah. And then we keep going. And my husband once was like, how in the hell do you know what she was talking about? And I thought about it. I'm like, I do that all the time. I'm like, I guess I don't know. We just do, but she's the only one that I do that with. And so I just probably just know her so well.
Yeah.
But it's not telepathy.
Yeah. Christina, any experience with telepathy at all?
Yeah, there's a person in my life. We're very, it's really kind of freaky telepathic, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with, I'm also like a medium, so I don't know if it has more, like I always kind of associate it more with that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is also why I contact sometimes, because like, then you're getting too much into like seeing dead people or whatever. I don't know, but hey.
How about you, Jen? Any experience with telepathy?
Yeah, when I was younger, when I was a lot more, I feel like I was more spiritual then, but I used to have feelings, especially if I drink coffee or was overstimulated, I could feel if something bad was going to happen. So it's not like a good thing, but I had, and it was always with like someone who was pretty close to me. So it would be like a boyfriend or a very close friend, but I could feel when, like I was just working one day randomly and I felt my gut just like drop. It felt like someone punched me in the stomach. And so I called my house because I lived with my boyfriend at the time, and I called and he didn't answer, which is fine. Like it wasn't a big deal. I lived just down the street. And then he called me back and was like, hey, I'm going to spend the night at my friend's house. Anyway, whatever it turned out, he just ended up cheating on me and we broke up. But things like that happened after that all the time, where I could just, as soon as I felt like something drop in my stomach, I would try to think of the person, all the people close to me, and like family members or like whoever, and try to, and I could usually like hone in on who it was. But I think what does make sense though, like going back to like autism and telepathy, it would make sense if people who, who are neurodivergent were just born more spiritual. They would just have that natural ability to be telepathic. I think it's an interesting concept. I've never thought about it like that, but that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, if I'm connected to somebody, I definitely like, I have this, I'm assuming it might be possibly annoying sometimes that I'm finishing people's sentences, just because like I'm on the same like wave. I know what you're saying, and just like I find myself to completing their sentences. I'm just like, all right, and like I'll know what somebody either feels or thinks. Yeah, it's definitely pretty cool to be able to function that way, I guess. And I feel like we as humanity are heading that way anyway, in general.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. It's wonderful. So you guys, if you have any other topics or any kind of anything to bring up, let's go ahead and do so. Otherwise, I guess thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me, and having this discussion and possibly planting some seeds to have people consider, to think about, and just kind of expand our awareness, expand our reality, our understanding, our consciousness. Just, you know, we continue to grow as humans, continue growing our information, just so we could be better, better at understanding our world and what's going on, and how to traverse, I guess, through it and everything. All right, you guys, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for listening. Everybody have a great day. And I also have a video where I talk to another autistic woman that will be in my YouTube channel as well. Just type in autism or autism discussion. I actually don't quite remember. And there's also a category. So it'll be definitely in the categories in the YouTube under, I guess, autism. And I do really hope that I continue doing these kinds of things to continue to just open people's minds and consider the things that we haven't spoke about yet when it comes to neurodivergence and autism in general. All right, guys, thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks.